Okay, let's try this one more time. Just waiting on Cari. Both of us have headphones, and she says hi. And Cari, I just need you to join by requesting. I just allowed you to join. Okay, waiting. Awesome.
Okay, I think we're
Oh
back.
my
I think it
God,
sounds
so
better
much
now, right?
better. Okay. I hope all of the viewers
Yeah.
who were here before can come back and hear us clearly now. All right. Let's do this. All right. So thank you, Cari, for joining. I'm going to start over. Cari and I have known each other for approximately 15 years when I was a swim director and she was a group leader at a camp on Long Island. Cari has been one of my biggest fans since I started my ADHD coaching company, and she volunteered to, we got a lot better from Alexandra. Thanks, Alexandra. She volunteered to do this because she wanted to show the viewers out there how ADHD can be a gift in disguise. She's lived with this her whole life. She was diagnosed when she was 5, and she's 28 right now. Just a little bit about Cari. She's a social worker and psychotherapist who lives in New York City. She also happens to have a processing disorder and ADHD. Cari was diagnosed with a processing disorder in kindergarten and was in a variety of services from private therapy and tutoring to intensive school-based support services. Cari has worked hard and navigated a difficult path, but in the end was able to overcome her disability, or as she sees it, a gift in disguise. Cari graduated with honors from the University at Albany in 2012 and then went on to the NYU Silver School of Social Work, graduating in 2014. She has continued her education by taking classes at Columbia and NYU and is working towards her clinical license in social work, which she should be getting this summer. Cari is also a social worker for formerly homeless children at a large New York City non-for-profit and works part-time in a private psychotherapy practice. She also serves on the board for a national non-for-profit, Glamour Girls. So again, this is just a little part of Cari's story of life with a processing disorder and ADHD. So welcome, Cari.
Thank
Thank
you
you
for
for
having
volunteering
me.
to be with us today. So now that I can hear you clearly,
Yeah,
so
this is
much
much
better.
better.
Can you tell me a little bit about your journey from diagnosis as a kindergartner?
Sure. So, I was diagnosed in kindergarten with starting with a processing disorder and I believe executive functioning
Mm-hmm.
disorder at the same time. My kindergarten teacher had caught on, and there had been suspicions before. I was not able to put
Mm-hmm.
patterns correctly, whether that be with blocks and things like that, and they had realized that that would be affecting my reading. After obviously a variety of tests from, psychologists and social workers and speech pathologists, it was concluded that I had a processing disorder and uh, executive functioning disorder. I went on to become older and diagnosed with ADHD, which become on and off with medications. But my parents had really done everything in their power from the time I was 5 years old, whether that be therapy or private tutors to every in-school service I could possibly get. They were completely and totally involved. I couldn't read till
Wow.
the third grade. Yeah, and then magically, my dad always used to say, some people have the key to the door, but other people have to go
I like
around the
that.
wall. And yeah, so he always used to say that about me. And then something kind of clicked. And by the time I was in fifth grade, I remember in fourth grade, I had won a poetry contest. And by the time I was in fifth, I was, excelling in English and in honors classes by middle school. And this was all just with my, dedication to wanting
Yes.
to do better. It had nothing to do with my intelligence. I was always a smart kid, always did well on state testing. You know, my IQ was
Yeah.
high, high,
So you were smart.
So I don't want people to, I was
You
smart.
are smart.
I don't want people to think that, I am smart, right? I don't want people thinking that ADHD and a processing disorder makes that you are any less of a bright individual without the capability to do anything possible.
Right. Thank you for sharing that. And again, I'm just so thrilled that you're here so you can share your story with people who may have children who are just diagnosed, or people who are adults who are recently being diagnosed, or adults right now who've been diagnosed when they were younger as well, and can share and compare their stories with your story.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not an easy thing to say, and like people have always told me, like, don't tell many people, or kind of keep it to yourself, keep it to yourself with your employer. Don't tell your employer, and I'd gotten to the point with my job now where I can tell and honestly, like my ADHD is not a secret. Like me, like I am like totally hyped all the time, like on the go. To me, it's not a secret, and I don't want it to be either. Like I work with children with similar issues, and just knowing that they can excel, and there's no reason that they can't be in the same place, if not even a more amazing place than I am now. And I'm not ashamed of it. I'm proud of it in a lot of ways. I think it's made me the person I am today. Without it, I think I might be a little bit boring.
Well, you're certainly not boring, so that's one of your major gifts.
Yeah, I'm definitely not boring
at all.
Exactly.
Thank you, Kristen, for joining us as well. I appreciate the people who were on the video the first time around coming back around and having faith in us figuring out the right way to do Facebook Live.
Yes.
So, yes, you mentioned that one of your gifts were the fact that you're not boring. What else?
I've seen you post a lot about being hyper focused, and it's funny because I'm always like, I have a coworker, and she'll always be like, she's my best friend at work, and she'll always be like, Cari, like, why are you not like hearing what I'm saying? Like, I'm talking to you. And I'm like, I'm not ignoring you. Like,
Focused
I'm
on
just
something else.
Involved in something. I'm focused on something else. But when I'm focused, I'm focused. I'm like hardcore into it. Like, if I'm writing an email, I'm like in that email writing and rereading it, and I can't really hear anything else, to be honest. And a lot of that is, it can be a deficit, I guess, in some ways, but in a lot of ways it gives me the ability to make sure that my work is kind of perfect. And that really was very helpful in grad school and in college, because I was able to be hyper focused on my papers and hyper focused on
academics.
Like my academics. Like, for example, like I know myself. When you have ADHD, or a processing disorder, the biggest part is learning to know yourself and what are your flaws and what are your deficits. And mine was time management. I would get a paper in high school and do it at the last minute. Now, I get a paper a month in advance. That day, I'm at the library. Because I know that if I don't start right away now, that it will slip to the bottom of my list. I need to be focused on it immediately, because I know that it's important, and falling into old habits and breaking old habits is part of living with ADHD. And a lot of this was, helped with me by teachers and my parents, but a lot, unfortunately, there was nobody in my life like you who was a coach that, I had to learn this kind of all by myself. And by the time I got to college, I was like, all right, I need to buckle down and just be hyper focused. And I was. I mean, even when I was studying for my LMSW, you have to take a test, a state test, a
Mm-hmm.
licensing exam. I started studying in December. The test is in May. But I
Yeah.
know that I have to do
So you
that.
see a,
Not because
I'm
I
sorry,
can't
go on.
retain the not because I can't retain the information, but just because I like to be prepared.
Understood. Understood. And what happens to you now if you let that slip?
It goes in my it's funny. I have like a junk drawer.
Yeah.
Like I have secrets. Like not secrets, but I have a junk drawer. My closet's a mess. Um, Everything else is pretty much, neat and organized, but I still have these secret kind of like Cari, ADHD, like unorganized places that
Mm-hmm.
I keep my things. And I think those things that I don't do right away will fall to
Yeah.
the
And
wayside
and
if I don't
you'll
do it
never
right
get
away.
to it.
And yeah, exactly. And sometimes like I know I can be like annoying to her. I'll be like, I need to get this done now. Like this was assigned to me now,
Now.
so I'm doing it today, right now. They're like, why can't you just take lunch? I'm like, I can't take lunch. I need to file these papers because if I don't file these papers now, then I won't care as much
That's interesting
30
that you
minutes
said you won't
later.
care as much 30 minutes later. It'll just fall to the wayside and something else will come up.
I'll be like, yeah, something else will come up and it'll be like, okay, I'll put it on my list. But if everything is first to do on my list,
Yeah.
then everything gets
I
done.
love it. And then I'm sure that helps with how you're feeling about your disability, or as you call it, a gift.
Yeah, I mean, I would not be the same person I am without it. I don't think I'd be as good as a therapist. I don't think I'd be as good as a social worker or as good of a friend or as good as a kid, like a child to my parents. I have a
Yeah.
lot of energy, and I think I'm also I I wouldn't I'm not an aggressive person like I fight or anything like that, but like when I stand for something and I believe in something, I am like gung ho, like I won't let
Got
it
it.
rest.
That's great.
Which can be to some people annoying, but in my head, like if I'm not gonna if I not that I don't care, but like I'm like if I believe in it,
Yeah.
then I'm gonna do it.
Understood.
And it gives you kind of like this extra drive, this extra push of being. It's almost like it makes you more passionate
Yeah.
in a lot of ways.
Yeah. So you're more passionate. You're focused on the things that
Hmm.
interest you and you need to get done. As far as time
Right.
management goes, you take care of things that you need to do right away rather than them going to the wayside.
Yeah, I have very good
And
time
you're very
management.
social, as you were saying. You're
Yes.
not boring. I would say that a lot
No.
of people call you funny.
I think so. Some of my friends might
Well,
disagree,
the
but
people watching right now, I don't think they would disagree. Um, but also, you're successful and you have figured out systems that work for you.
yeah. And and I was saying before, like I spoke to my mom when I saw that you were doing this coaching thing, because my mom has known you since we worked together, and I said, Brooke's doing this ADHD processing disorder coaching thing. Like, how great would this have been when I was a kid? I had tutors, I had private therapists, I had everything, but I had no one who targeted my
Yeah.
organization's issues. Like my desk was like World War III. My locker was like you don't even want to know. My room, like everything. If I would have had somebody, if there would have been a service like you, I know my
Yeah.
parents would have employed it.
Yeah.
Um, just because it's so niche but so needed
Yeah.
at the
Thank you
same
for
time.
saying that. So, for the people who may be watching or the ones who will be watching later, um, what can be like one of your takeaways or suggestions to them in managing their ADHD or their children's ADHD?
I think letting your kids come to their own organizational skills. Not everybody is the same. Like what works for you is not going to what works for me. whether that be color coding things, whether that be letting them have a junk drawer, letting them,
You're so right.
they're just having like that secret place, like where it's so kind of okay to
Right.
be a little messy. It's not everything has to be perfect. I think schools and teachers put things, you need to organize your binder the way that I want it to be organized. But what if, putting the lesson and then the homework next doesn't work for you? What if having a homework section is what works for you?
You do it that
Why
way.
can't teachers and yeah, why can't they be
And
more
I find
flexible?
that coming from a school district and being a special education teacher previously, I see that that's being instituted now. So I think that every classroom's different, every teacher's different, but I see that this type of training is being implemented into classrooms, especially in New York. I did recently volunteered to speak at a CHAD meeting in Florida. And unfortunately, some of the parents here did not feel that this type of work was being implemented into the classroom. So I think that that would be something great for all of the kids, people with disabilities, people without disabilities, to be a part of.
Right. Like, for example, like having oh my God, having a processing disorder.
An executive function
having
disorder.
Executive functioning. Yeah, I get them all. Like, why can't I have a spelling book at home and have a spelling book at school if that's what's going to help me succeed?
Now they're doing that, there's accommodations to that. Yeah.
And that's something that would have been a lot different than me having to beg my neighbor to please let me use her spelling book at like 8:00 at night so that I could get my homework done, instead of being penalized and having to be called to supervised study in my school. If you didn't do your homework, you had to miss recess. And I wasn't a kid who was against doing homework. I would leave
at
my
school.
book. Like, why not have two books,
right.
One there, one here?
And and like I said, that is definitely an accommodation that is being implemented now for people with IEPs to have an extra set of textbooks. And luckily, a lot of the textbooks now are online, so you don't have to bring them back and forth.
That's great.
That's helpful. And I think that
that would have saved me a lot of trouble.
And I think that a lot of the things that we're discussing right now, they've made major improvements on. But of course, I really like how you said there's not just one system that works for anyone. And that parents, teachers, whomever, they should allow their kids, their students, to choose a system that works for them.
Yeah, it's like how, when as a therapist, not what works for one person is not going to work for another, and you have to be flexible as the person facilitating. For example, for me, facilitating the therapy session, that not everything that works for client A is going to work for client B, and I need to be the person who's flexible in that because I am the person who is providing the services.
I love that. Just having an open mind, listen and observe what the client or the student or the child can work with and what they're thinking about, and working with them. Yeah.
Right. And just for parents to be the best advocates for their children, because, my parents were amazing advocates for me, and I think that's why I got so far as I did in life. And just trying, I understand that it can be extremely frustrating for parents. Like, why can't their book be organized? Why are they forgetting their lunch at home all the time? And yes, it is very frustrating, but to kind of take it with a grain of salt and realize that they're not trying to be malicious or they're not trying to be disobedient. They want to succeed, these kids, and just giving them kind of the chance to
use their own,
be themselves,
their own strategies and systems.
If you're gonna, if for them, like packing their lunch and putting it in front of the door every morning is going to help them remind them to bring their lunch, then let them do that.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you, Cari. Is there any?
Thank you. I'm happy that everyone was
Yes,
able to
yes.
hear.
And I think we should do this again, maybe on another topic. And
Yeah, I'd love to. And like, I can't just say enough, like, not just because I know you, but like having your coaching and things like this, if this would have been 20 something years ago, my life, I mean, not that my life would have been different, but maybe I would have been able to remember, maybe things would have been able to go more smoothly for me as, you know, as a child.
thank you for saying
And,
that.
this type of help wasn't
Yeah,
around.
thank you for saying that. But I so appreciate your story. And I know that I'm sure that
Of course.
other viewers appreciate what you just had to say. And if anyone has any questions, I would be happy to reach out to Cari and have her answer them for you on my Facebook page, Coaching with Brooke. And yeah, I just can't thank you enough. Thank you, Cari, for your time.
Thank you. It was an honor to be on.
All right.
And any questions anybody
Awesome.
has.
All right. So any questions, just post on my Facebook
right.
page or to this video, and Cari or I will answer. Thank you.
Okay.